This is going to be a general tutorial for how to do a Y and T raise, but again, this is going to apply to almost all of the scap work in your program. So whether it's a TRX face pull, it's a TRX Y raise, it's a band pull apart, any number of variations that stem from this fundamental pattern. But again, this is where you learn the pattern. This is where you learn how to move the scapula and the rib cage. This is where you ideally learn how to position the pelvis properly, position the spine properly, so that you can get true scapular motion along the rib cage and not get that motion from the wrong place, not overactivate the lats, etc. So this is a good place to start teaching the movement. I'm going to have Tyler demonstrate it improperly to start, and then from there we're going to go through some common modifications, coaching adjustments, so that after you learn this, we're reinforcing good positions in all of your scapular movements for the entire duration of your program. So learn it right the first time, and you're going to be reinforcing good movement patterns as we get started. Okay, go ahead and show what a typical T raise and then a Y raise might look like for a lot of guys. So very commonly what you'll see is a ton of extensor tone. So he's cranking through his low back right now. You'll see that he's kind of digging with his lat, so his scap's getting into a little downward rotation. Okay, you'll notice his first movement is scap down and back. Now he's doing Ys. Scap down and back, and then after that, he's cranking all that motion through his humerus. And then finally, you'll also notice his head is off the table. So what that's doing, he's actively contracting levator scap, which again we know is a downward rotator, which again we don't want that as well either. So this isn't a great position. It might look good at a glance, but this is extremely different from what we're actually trying to achieve. We're trying to inhibit the lat, which we know is a downward rotator and a depressor. We're trying to get his pelvis in more of a neutral position, and we're trying to get that neck in more of a neutral position as well. So first modification is place a pillow, a rolled up sweatshirt, a half foam roller, something under the hips. So again, instantly we're going to get him to more of a posteriorly tilted pelvic position. Okay, second point is keeping the chest on the ground, on the table rather the entire time, so we're not cranking into extension. Final note about the neck position is a towel, something under the forehead, just to keep a neutral neck posture. And then as we're actually going through the raise, go ahead and scoot a little bit more towards the edge of the table so that you have room to clear. As we're going through the raise, main thing that we're looking for, we're going to start with a T raise, is A, he's actually right in line with his shoulders, so he's right at 90 degrees. A lot of guys, they start to compensate, rather than using their mid-back, their mid-traps, they start to crank with their lat. Okay, a lot of guys are very lat dominant. You'll crank with their lat and you'll see that angle. They're not quite in line with their shoulders. So again, we want thumb up, and we want it directly in line with the shoulders. He's still cranking down a little bit. So again, we're taking the lats out of it as much as we can, placing that emphasis low trap, mid trap. Okay, go ahead and do a couple more reps with that. Okay, second thing you notice is I'm able to get my hand underneath his shoulder. So, okay, if you basically just keep the scap pinned down and all that motion is coming from the humerus itself, you're not getting good ball and socket congruency of the humerus and the scapula, where the goal is to basically move the scapula along the rib cage, not fix the scapula, and get all of that motion at the ball of the shoulder joint. Okay, so these are moving in unison, and because that's happening, because he's getting true scapular retraction, there should be a gap underneath the shoulder as you go through that movement. Okay, go ahead and do a Y. On any Y movement, the goal is to get about 135 degrees, so we're really targeting the angle of the lower trap fibers. And again, you should not feel this in the front of the shoulder, in the bicep tendon. This is one where the goal is really to focus on actively driving the scap into retraction and a little bit of posterior tilt. Okay, a lot of guys will initially feel this. If they're doing it improperly, they'll try to basically depress the scap and yank down with the lat. The goal is to take the lat out of it and get true posterior tilt. So go up. Okay, so we're trying to get the scap, A, in this upwardly rotated position, and B, to posteriorly tilt back. Okay, so that's going to be the primary goal. Retraction, upward rotation, and posterior tilt. Okay, if you're doing this properly, it's a deep burn through the lower and middle trap. Improperly, you're going to feel it lat and bicep tendon.